Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Ask for a roll call, please.
Sure. Good evening, Chair. Commissioner Moyer.
Here.
Commissioner Benefield.
Here.
Commissioner Slant.
Here.
Vice Chair Allen.
Here.
And Chair LaFevers.
Here. Thank you very much. If we could, if you'd all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome again. Okay, any introductions, announcements?
Chair, just one announcement. This month at the Architecture Review Board on October 17th, so this is next week, next Thursday, the ARB will be getting an early look at the proposed objective design standards, which will be part of our larger rezone effort for the housing element. So recall, as part of the housing element, we have to rezone a certain number of sites to meet our RHNA shortfall. And as part of that, we're proposing to create a series of objective design standards that would apply to projects that would otherwise qualify for a ministerial permitting process. So under the housing element law and some of the state housing laws, there's certain types of housing projects that are eligible for a streamlined review that would not otherwise go to Architecture Review Board or Planning Commission. And so for those types of projects, we're working on these objective design standards that would help give us a little bit of design control still over these projects in lieu of our typical discretionary permitting process. So those proposed standards go to the ARB next Thursday for review, and then our goal is to package those up along with the proposed rezone sites themselves and bring those to your commission for next month's hearing. So that's it for announcements.
Okay, thanks for that information. Appreciate it. And for all the work that I know goes into that. Okay, we'll move on our agenda to the public comment period. I'll open the public comment period for anybody who's here to speak on an item that's not on the agenda tonight. Patrick.
Thanks, and I will fill out a form. Just want to comment on the note that staff made just now is it's great we're both going to review, or the two committees are going to review that objective design standards. There was to be a committee that was joint between planning and ARB that was going to look at that ahead of time before those were issued, and I'm just curious where that stands.
Okay, thanks. Did you have a question? Or?
I wanted to bring up a new business, a new.
Can we save that for
When do we do that?
later on the agenda for
Oh,
items
sorry,
presented
okay.
by commissioners?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sorry, sure, that's fine. I just wasn't sure where it
Yeah.
comes in.
Don't let me forget.
Oh, I won't.
You can kick me out of
Don't
there.
worry.
Nick, did you have a response to that question?
Chair, it is a good question. It's something that it's kind of an interesting situation we found ourselves in, right? So the Downtown Design Committee that Mr. O'Connor is referring to was convened initially to help with overseeing or helping provide input on the downtown design overlay work that at one time was being looked at, as well as updating neighborhood design guidelines. Those particular projects haven't made it very far yet, although some of the work that had been done as part of the downtown design overlay has been, kind of borrowed, if you will, and brought into these objective design standards. And in the rush to get this forward, we hadn't considered or thought whether it made sense to, somehow circle back and bring this to the Downtown Design Committee. So the short answer is right now there is not a plan to bring it to the committee in the interest of expediency. But that might be something that we can take a look at here and see where it might be able to fit in the process.
Okay, appreciate that response. Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody on Zoom who's like to speak on an item not on the agenda?
All right, looks like there's no public comments. Thank you.
Thanks for the reminder. Okay, moving on to our consent calendar. We have one item, which is the minutes from the September 3rd meeting for the Planning Commission. Are there any comments or changes to the minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, if there's no discussion, let me ask for, all those in favor, say aye.
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 And I will abstain. I was not present at that meeting. And, I'm sorry, did you say aye?
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry. So, four with one abstention. Okay. Let's go to new public hearings. We have a few on the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, for the first three, which are all time extensions, if your commission is okay with it, we'd like to just make one presentation for all three since they're very, very similar. And then we would just ask that your commission take three separate votes since we do have some quorum issues amongst the commission on the items.
Okay, that works for me. We probably will need to make sure if there's any discussion on the items that we take that individually with each project as well, so in case we have folks abstaining. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, Chair Lefevers, members of the Planning Commission. Tonight, as Nick mentioned, I have a bundle of 3 time extension requests for you to review. And I think what Commissioner Benefielder was referring to is the Howard and Cerny projects. She can't vote on those because they're too close to her. She's conflicted out on those. So the first one is the Marquez Duplex Addition and Remodel for Unit A time extension. This is a request for a 1-year time extension to extend the prior approval to December 16th of 2025. The original approval by the Planning Commission was on December 5th, 2022. And the status on that one is that the building permit has been submitted, and it came in when we were transitioning from Roy Hawthorne doing our contract plan checks to hiring the new 2 firms, Bureau Veritas and True North, that we now use for our contract plan checks, plus during our transition from paper to digital. So this particular building permit application got kind of gummed up in that transition process at the end of the year when it came in. But now it has been reviewed and it's out for plan check corrections. And then there were some rather extensive corrections necessary for this one as well. So the building permit's taking a little longer than we anticipated. So we're here today to ask for the time extension so that we can get the building permit issued and construction started hopefully before next December. So that's the Marquez one. And then the Howard New Residence Time Extension, this one is in on Dorrance in the Beach neighborhood. This one is at 4818 Dorrance. And this is another 1-year time extension request to extend the Planning Commission approval from September 5th was the hearing date, plus the appeal period makes it the effective date, to extend the approval out to September 16th, 2025. And the building permit for this one has been submitted. It's been through plan checked, and the applicant is just working on the final few items to be able to pull the building permit, specifically the fire department, letter of conditions, and then I've got the contractor information that I'm still waiting for, and then the contractor's city business license. So just little things, and then they'll be able to pull the permit and then hopefully start construction right away. And then the last one is the Cerny new residence time extension, and this is at 4610 4th Street. And another, the Howard and Cerny projects actually went before you on the same day, September 5th, 2023. So this is a one-year time extension to also September 16th, 2025 for this one. The Cerny building permit was issued on August 26th of this year, and they have cleared the property and they've got some equipment on site ready to start construction literally ASAP. If they didn't start this week, I think they were waiting for some of the road construction to be completed before they started because they're repaving some of the roads in the beach neighborhood right now. But it was imminent. They've got the excavator out there on site to start doing the foundation excavations. So all three are on the way to having their building permits and starting construction. They're just not quite there yet. So staff feels that all three are reasonable time extension requests. And then for each one, I did a slide of the action options. This is the Marquez staff recommendation for approval, and then alternately, you could continue the project or deny it. And then action options for the Howard, again, the same three choices, and then also again for Cerny. So when you get to your time to make your decisions, we can refer to these slides for the language. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to take these individually. So we'll start with item 2, which is the Marquez Duplex Edition. So we'll start our discussions on that item. Any ex parte communications on the Marquez Duplex?
No. No.
Oh,
Okay.
No.
Thank you. And we've had the staff presentation. Are there questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Is this one I can talk about? Well, whichever.
Through the chair, yes, it's one you can talk about.
Is this the person who was stuck in the city loop and couldn't get his stuff? What you just said, he couldn't get his permit because you changed systems and things. Well, did that person have to pay for an extension given it wasn't really his fault?
Well, we have a deposit on file, so they, we billed our time, but the staff reports for this was very minimal.
Okay, but I just think that it's unfair for him to pay for something the city might have done, but you haven't told me the whole story. So that's one point. The other one is, why do we get these? Why can't the planning director just sign off on these? I know it's in the code, but you could change the code.
Through the chair, Commissioner Benefield, that's basically it right now, is that the way that the code is set up, it has to go back to the decision maker who granted or took action on the original permit. So when the projects get approved by the planning commission, they have to come back to the commission for the extension.
I understand. Now, have we ever denied a time extension?
I
No.
can't think of a circumstance where we've denied one. There have been circumstances perhaps where we've taken the opportunity to amend or update project conditions because of changed circumstances.
Oh, okay, well, that's different.
Fortunately, we do not have any of those here. There's nothing, that's happened or changed in these neighborhoods that would merit reconsidering any of the conditions. But that's part of the reason that it comes back to your commission is,
I didn't know that.
in the event there's changed circumstances, we would bring those up, and that would be an opportunity for the commission to decide if there's reason to, change the approval, change the conditions, something like that.
Thank you, Nick.
through the chair.
Go ahead, David.
And so changed circumstances would be either changes, substantial changes that they applied for, coincident with the time extension, or substantial changes in the neighborhood that might affect the appropriateness of an approval. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if we change the code to have, since, as we're saying, 95% of these are pretty pro forma, we'd have to carve out those exceptions, and that would then leave that decision of whether there is or not to staff. So that would be the consideration before changing the code.
That's correct.
Thank you. Kathleen?
Through the chair, I have a question.
please.
With these extensions, it seems that it has to do with the permit, getting the permit, sort of, and I'm wondering if there is something perhaps systemic in the system, sorry, that's kind of a repeating, but that I know that the city has hired more planners. If we had more people in the permit end of it, would that get people their permits sooner, and the owners wouldn't have to be asking for the extension because they would already be underway?
Through the chair, Commissioner Salant, the Marquez one originally had a 2-year approval because I was anticipating it might take a while, just for circumstances with the applicant. The Howard and Cerny projects both received our standard 1-year condition of approval, and they were gung-ho to go at the beginning, and then, it just took a little longer than anticipated, so that's why those two are here before you today.
Just to add on, what happens on a lot of these projects is that the level of detail, the level of completeness of the plans when it comes to your planning commission are, what we would call preliminary architectural plans. Most folks don't want to invest in that next jump to actual working drawings with hiring all the consultants and engineers that you need to bring those plans to the next level that you could actually build off of them until after they have your approval. And so post-planning commission approval, there can be a significant lead time depending on your architect's availability or your engineer's availability or your mechanical engineer's availability, so on and so forth, to compile a complete set of plans and get it turned in. And so that's where often there's a significant lag is, once a project's received planning commission approval, it may be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months before we finally get that next submittal to take that next step in the permitting process. And that's not something where, the city is necessarily holding up an applicant. That's just, an applicant working with their private contractors and consultants to pull together everything they need for that building permit submittal. And then, once we do receive the building permit submittal, we turn around the first plan check within about a month. Depending on how extensive the corrections are, there can be several back and forths from there. So it's very dependent on the situation and the project. But the main point I'm trying to make is that it's not entirely on the city in terms of why there's a delay or an inability of these projects to get completed within a year.
I see.
One more question.
Go ahead.
We don't get very many of these, so it's not a really big deal. I think we've had 5 in 20 years, so. But it just seems we could simplify it. Anyway, that's my.
Okay, I think we've made it through all the questions. I will open up the public comment period, ask if there's anyone who'd like to speak, including a representative for the applicant. Sir. Seeing no one. Anybody on Zoom?
Through the chair, nope, there's nobody on Zoom.
Okay, very good. I'll close the public comment period for the Marquez duplex. Bring it back to the commission for additional discussion, deliberation. If there is none, I would entertain a motion for approval of the extension.
I move we approve the extension.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Don't we have to do them separately? Marquez.
This is Marquez
This is the
only.
Marquez one.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll call for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. The time extension is granted. Okay, we are now moving to item 3 on the agenda, which is the Howard new residence time extension. Before I ask if there's ex parte, I'll ask if there's anyone who needs to recuse themselves for this.
Well, I was going to abstain. Do you want me to recuse myself? I mean, what's the difference?
You have a conflict due to
Yeah, I know.
your location, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And, So,
Perhaps staff would like to comment, but
they do.
Through the chair, I think if Commissioner Benefield just wants to make a statement that she'll recuse herself from this item in Cerny, that's fine, and then we can move on with the discussion.
Want me to leave?
I don't think it's necessary
Okay,
for this
I'm
item.
recusing myself because I'm a rich person living in this neighborhood.
okay, thank you. Any ex parte communications on the Howard residence?
No.
Okay. We've already had the staff report. Thank you for that. Any questions of staff on Howard residents?
Nope.
Doesn't look like it. No questions? Okay. Thank you. I'll open the public comment period. Anybody here from the applicant or the public that'd like to speak on item 3, the Howard residence? I don't see anyone. Thank you. Anybody on Zoom?
Thank you, Commissioner. Nobody on Zoom.
Very good. I will close the public comment period, bring it back to the commission for discussion, deliberation. If there's no discussion or deliberation, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the time extension.
I move that we approve the time extension.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ask for a voice vote, please. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain?
I guess
Okay,
I
we have one abstention. So that motion passes 4-0. The time extension for the Howard residence is approved. Okay, let's go to item 4, which is the Cerny residence time extension. Any ex parte communications on this item?
No.
No.
I'm recused.
Okay. Commissioner Benefield is recused from this item. Okay, and we've had a staff report. Any questions of staff? Okay. I'll open the public comment period. Anybody here from the public or the applicant to speak on this item? Don't see anybody. Anybody on Zoom?
No one on Zoom, Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close the public comment period, bring it back to the commission for discussion, deliberation. If there is none, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the time extension.
I move we extend the time extension.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll ask for a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And we have one abstention. Motion passes 4-0-1, and the time extension for the Cerny residence is approved.
Job, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for indulging us there in that hopefully slightly more efficient manner of getting through those 3.
That's great.
Give us a moment here while we change staff, and then we'll be ready to move on to item number 5.
Okay, thank you. Okay, looks like we're ready. So we'll move on to item 5 on our agenda, which is the Public Works carport item. Before I ask for staff report, any ex parte communications on this item?
No.
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 Okay, very good. And let's have a staff report then.
Thank you, Chair Commissioners. I'm Brian Banks here, presenting the Public Works Equipment Carport project for you this evening. Fairly straightforward. We'll get into the slides here. I should have had the You Are Here map. I just thought of that right now. I'm sure your commission is familiar with the setting here. We're at the City Hall campus. Outlined in yellow is the perimeter of the campus. The carport for your consideration tonight would be approximately at that location where the arrow is pointing to. There, we're within the fenced Public Works Corporation yard area of the property in this panhandle portion here. To the north of the project site, we have a commercial storage facility use. To the south and west are the Chevron oil and gas processing facility property. And of course, to the east, here's the skate park under construction. To the east is the Tea Time use. The property is within the community facility zone district with the public facility land use designation. We are within the coastal appeals overlay because of our location here between the coast and the first public road, which in our case is Carpinteria Avenue. And we are in the Bluff Zero design sub-area. The project itself is a 750 square foot prefabricated equipment carport, 17 feet 9 inches in height. The project would not require any grading or any changes to the site landscaping or parking locations. The project does include a variance request to locate the proposed equipment carport approximately 3.5 feet into the required approximately 9-foot rear setback, and I'll show you that in the upcoming slides. Overall site plan here again, the City Hall campus. You are here. The fenced and secured Public Works Corporation yard portion of the property here. Outlined here is the Public Works Maintenance Building, the proposed carport here in yellow. We'll have a zoomed in slide here when we get to the discussion of the variance itself. Area shaded in green is the portion of the carport which would extend into the approximately 9-foot setback. We would still maintain over 5 feet of separation between the rear of the carport structure and the property line. And I just would say that has been reviewed by fire district, and they're comfortable with that 5 foot of clearance. They would be able to have access all the way around the structure, which is what they need. Some photos of the facility. So this is looking west from, again, the entrance to the corporation yard. You'll see it's a vehicle gate here and a secured facility. To the right is the existing Public Works Maintenance Building. Oops. A little closer in view, the carport would be approximately where the backhoe is sitting now in this general location. Important here, just part of our review of different locations for the carport that work for Public Works is, and the necessity for the variance is just because it's kind of tight there. It's kind of narrow. And we do have a lot of storage areas. We have the larger roll-offs and the Harrison trucks that come to drop off and retrieve, our bin storage areas that are here to the north. And so I think this kind of gives you a good view of that. It's kind of narrow there in terms of access, which is, again, one of the reasons for the requested relief of the rear setback. Again, just closer in view of where the carport itself would go. If you're looking south, see it just basically filling in this area here footprint-wise. Notice in the background that we don't have any buildings or immediate development next to the proposed structure's location. This is a view looking northward towards Carpinteria Avenue. Again, these are our bin locations or storage locations. You can see, kind of what we're dealing with in terms of vehicular access and circulation in there. Another view, this one looking east. Again, location here to the right. The carport itself is a prefabricated metal structure, cost-effective way for the city to provide the necessary protection for the equipment. This specifically would be for the street sweeper, and which does require an electrical connection. and that conduit for the electrical connection is already in place adjacent to where the carport would go. Hasn't been put into service yet. Would require the actual connection should your commission approve the project moving forward. But it's kind of ready to go in the right location. Everything works out dimensionally for that, so no additional grading or excavation or anything would be required for its construction. Colorized versions of each elevation. It's a utility building. As referenced in the staff report, staff did not see the need for this to go to the ARB for review, given its location. It's not substantially visible from Carpinteria Avenue, any public viewing areas. It's at the back of the facility, again, within the secured corporation yard area. And it's of modest size at 750 square feet, modest in height, under 18 square feet in height. So this is about as pretty as we've made the plans for your consideration this evening. But again, it's a prefabricated building that has different colors or coatings that you can choose from, and Public Works has chosen this green shade. In terms of the project's compliance with the municipal code, again, we are in a community facility district zone. The proposed carport for Public Works or government facility would be an allowed use within the CF zone district. We're well under, with the proposed carport, would be well under the maximum building coverage and well under the 30-foot maximum height. Really, the meat and potatoes, so to speak, for your commission's consideration this evening is the encroachment into the rear setback and the need for the variance. So myself and Public Works staff, we walked the corporation yard and, kind of looked at all the various different locations in an effort to hopefully avoid the need for a variance, and thus, the commission's hearing and consideration tonight. But it became pretty apparent pretty quickly with all of the various uses and maneuvering requirements that this relief is basically going to be the determining factor of this prefabricated, low-cost alternative would work versus a custom-built structure that would need to be proposed if the project would need to comply with the approximately 9-foot rear yard. Part of that consideration was the turning radius that's required. And again, I think you remember from the photos we had earlier, we have some Marburg roll-offs that go here. These are the material storage bins. And so what we're attempting to show here, Public Works staff, Josefina specifically, had prepared this turning radius diagram just to give you a little better understanding of how kind of tight it is back there in the corporation yard. And again, thus the request for relief. So again, should your commission decide to approve the project, the result would be about 5 1/4 foot rear setback instead of the 8.875 foot setback. As I believe we had in the last hearing, we had a variance request. The same findings would apply here. There are 5 findings that your commission would need to make, the last of which being that the applicant would agree to comply with the conditions, and they have. And I'll take you through an analysis of those findings. They're reflected in the staff report, of course, and happy to answer questions about those as well. But in general, staff feels comfortable that all of the necessary findings can be made. The special circumstances, the first finding that we would need to analyze here, that there are special circumstances that apply here in this situation, specifically the panhandle, the somewhat narrow panhandle shape of the corporation yard area of the City Hall campus location, the constraints related to those existing storage areas, those material storage bins, the roll-offs, the existing maintenance building, and the maneuvering requirements therein. The next finding, that strict compliance would deprive the property of privileges enjoyed by other properties, It's somewhat difficult to make a direct comparison with other CF zone properties. Those would be like the sanitary district and water district and school districts. They'll have different needs, different operating requirements, different development standards or buildings that are built on those properties. But staff feels comfortable, as reflected in the staff report, that these special circumstances would apply here, because essentially if the relief was not granted, then the construction of the carport itself at the required dimensions wouldn't be feasible. The other finding relating to the granting of the variance, that it would not specifically affect the health, safety, and general welfare of the city or the surrounding neighborhood, or should say the surrounding neighborhood and the city as a whole. As you know, the adjacent property on two sides is the existing Chevron oil and gas facility property, which has a coastal industrial district designation. That zone district has uses and allowed developments that would be much more intensive in nature than the proposed carport. So staff feels comfortable, again, that the slight amount of relief necessary to encroach into the rear setback would not adversely affect the surrounding properties. As mentioned earlier, the project was routed through our normal department and agency review process to the various special districts and departments that review development applications. We had no comments received. Fire department specifically, we asked them to look at and make sure they were comfortable with the 5 foot and change rear setback, and they had no comments or conditions related to that. Excuse me. And then, of course, granting of the variance, ensuring that it wouldn't be in conflict with the zoning regulations, and the result, should your commission approve the project tonight, would be to modify those setbacks specifically for this development, such that the project would then conform to the setbacks as varied by your commission. And then again, the applicant has agreed with the recommended conditions as attached to the staff report. Very brief, I'll go through the key objectives and policies that would apply to the project. Land use element policies relating to orderly and well-planned development and preserving the small beach town character. Those dovetail nicely with the community design elements that would apply here. Scale and form of the buildings, consistent with the Coastal Act and the public views of the mountains and sea. Low intensity, low rise, small town feel. Appropriately sited and minimize their obtrusiveness, again, mountain and ocean views. So again, as referenced in the earlier slides, noting the location of the facility and its height at less than 18 feet, there would be no public view or public mountain view impacts, and we're not against the coast, so there would be no issues with views of the ocean. Additionally, there are no public access trails or easements that would conflict with the location. So I think we're consistent with all the required policies in that regard. Safety element, we are not within an area of flood hazard, nor are we in a high or moderate fire risk zone. And again, fire department has reviewed the plans. And finally, the one that the project is most connected to in terms of community policies are that the city would benefit from keeping all of our required government facilities and uses within our campus, and not to expand our campus and expand the use of these facilities beyond where they're currently located. So again, staff feels that these findings or these policies have the project is consistent with these policies. Again, especially because of the location in the corporation yard and its lack of kind of any public views. In terms of compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, we do have 2 CEQA exemptions that would be appropriate for this project. The first being pursuant to Section 15303, new construction or conversion of small structures, the project would meet the requirements of that CEQA exemption as they are appropriate for accessory or appurtenant structures, such as including carports, such as this project. And then also 15305, minor alterations in land use limitations. That CEQA exemption is appropriate for properties with variance requests such as this project that would be on properties with an average slope of less than 20% and no change in land use density, and we would not result in a creation of a new parcel. So both 15303 and 15305 would be appropriate exemptions for this project. So with that in mind, staff recommends that your commission adopt the resolution and the conditions as included within the staff report, and I'm available to answer any questions. We also do have Public Works Director and Public Works staff available if there's any comments or questions that you have for them, and they'd be happy to help answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the staff report. Okay, commissioners, do we have questions for staff or other members of Public Works who've joined us? No. No questions? Okay. I'll go ahead and open the public comment period then. Is there, and I guess I'll start with the applicant. Is there any additional presentation or comment? Okay, please come up.
Hello, my name is Josefina, and I am the project manager for this particular project. And I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you for listening to our presentation. And I also want to highlight that space and funds are limited, and a prefabricated carport is a cost-effective and essential solution for protecting the new electric street sweeper. I'm available to answer any questions, and if you have any inquiries about operations, I have Robert Howard, the Public Works Supervisor, and John Lawson, the Public Works Director, here with me. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. Questions?
I have a question.
Okay. You sat down too quickly. There's a question for you.
I gather that this is the beginning of the city having electric vehicles like this. And as we go down in the future, is the city likely to have more electric vehicles that need carports? So is this going to be a recurring thing?
I don't see this being a recurring thing. What I do see is that we are shifting towards more electric vehicles so we can be more sustainable. But I believe for now, we're just focusing on the electric street sweeper, and I don't see another carport coming in the future.
So the electric, I had the impression that you needed to have it covered from the elements, and that's why you needed the carport, and these other electric vehicles don't need this protection?
Through the chair.
I mean, just basically my question is, will we see more carports because going down the line, everybody, not just the city, but individuals are moving to electric vehicles?
This piece of equipment is a very expensive piece of equipment. I'm Robert Howard, the Public Works Supervisor. I'm the one that we used to have a place for it right here, which they moved us back over there. With this type of equipment, plus our backhoe, it's sitting in the elements and back there, those eucalyptus trees, they just sit there and completely drop, and you really can't park much there. With that electric sweeper, it's got a lot of electronics. We need to keep it covered so nothing can get up on there and make a mess. But yeah, we got enough room to put another electric vehicle if we have to. That's why I made it wide enough. But right now I'm trying to protect the most two expensive pieces of equipment the city of Carp owns from the elements out there, yes. But all this electronic stuff needs to be kind of protected from the weather.
So the protection is from the eucalyptus trees, not the rain and...
Well, you want none of that stuff coming on, but those ukes and all that keeps dropping everything on top. And we don't have, I mean, if you go back in our yard, it's all we do is clean up messes back there. But the only place I could park it was underneath those trees with all those elements, plus just trying to keep them as clean as we can. So you're not having a lot of the salt there and stuff as much, because the moisture just sits there and I don't know, it's all electric stuff, it's all new to us, so we're just trying to save a good piece of equipment that'll last you several years. If it sits outside, it's gonna get more and more weather on it, so.
Through the chair, Commissioner Salant, in regards to your question regarding, is going to be in regards to electric vehicles or electrification of our fleet, I believe that was the question. This particular facility, in regards to the car part that's going to have an electric charging station, the city is required to implement the sustainable community policy that was adopted by your city council in 2014. So this particular facility, including the charging station, is consistent with that. So we are going towards the electrification or sustainable type of facilities from that point to now, or to the future as well. So hopefully that answers that question in regards to, is this going to be something of a recurring nature in terms of electrification of our fleet and electrification or sustainable type of facilities? That's going to continue because we are required to implement that city council adopted policy, the sustainable community policy.
Actually, my question was, with this electrification of the city vehicles, will there in the future be more carports?
Yes.
And it sounds like, yes, there will.
Yes.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jane.
Okay, now, what was it? It's an old people thing. Oh, yeah, the backhoe. You said you're going to put a backhoe in there, too? Do you have one backhoe? And did you used to park it over there on
No,
the
it's
dirt?
always been parked right underneath here.
Is it electrical?
No, that's a diesel-operated piece of
Okay.
equipment. Those equipment has not been enough sustainability to buy those for basically commercial use.
Okay.
We're getting into this commercial stuff, and they're finding out that they're still having issues trying to make, a backhoe's got to have a lot in batteries. and
Power, yeah, I would, okay, well,
Yeah.
good, you cleared that up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate all that information. Public comment period still open. Anybody else in the audience here to speak on this item? I don't see anybody. Anybody on Zoom?
Thank you, Chair LaFevers. Nobody on Zoom at the time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I will close the public comment period, bring this item back to the commission for discussion and deliberation. Commissioners have comments on this item?
I'll make a motion if you like.
If there's no discussion, I'll be happy to entertain a motion.
I move that, what are we doing here? We approve the City of Carpinteria Public Works carport, case number 24-2300 DP variance and CDP.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. I will ask for a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Project's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
We'll pause briefly for the next item. Okay, looks like we're ready, so I'm going to open up item 6 on our agenda, amendment to the safety element, and ask for a staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair LaFevers and Planning Commission. My name is Megan Musoff. I'm the Assistant Long Range Planner. And tonight I'll be presenting on a proposed amendment to the safety element of our general plan. I'll just begin with a little bit of background on this project, why we're proposing this amendment. I'll quickly review the process to amend the general plan. Then I'll cover the actual changes that are proposed to the safety element. I'll quickly review the CEQA exemption for this project, and finally give you your action options for the evening. I'll begin with the background on why we're proposing this safety element amendment. This slide is likely not new information to you commissioners, but I'll cover it briefly for any interested members of the public. There are two key documents to keep in mind for this project: the city's general plan / coastal land use plan, or GP-CLUP as we call it, and the local hazard mitigation plan, or the LHMP. The GP-CLUP was adopted in 2003 and contains 8 sections covering different policy areas referred to as elements. The safety element is one of the mandatory elements under state general plan law. The LHMP is a document updated every 5 years that assesses the hazards that do or could potentially affect the city. It helps the city plan for natural or man-made disasters so that when or if they do occur, the impact is mitigated and recovery is smoother. State law allows jurisdictions to incorporate an LHMP as a part of the safety element to provide additional information about hazards and disaster preparedness. Pursuant to the Federal Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, developing and submitting LHMPs to FEMA qualifies a jurisdiction for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. The city was awarded a grant from this program in 2019 to update our LHMP. The work was completed in 2022, and in April of 2023, the City Council adopted the LHMP and approved a small general plan amendment to incorporate it into the safety element by reference. And this wording is key here. In January of this year, efforts to close out the grant stalled when the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, or Cal-OES, determined that the LHMP incorporation in the safety element was not done consistent with Assembly Bill 2140. AB 2140 requires that the LHMP in its entirety be included as a part of the safety element. It cannot be incorporated by reference to the document, but can be achieved through a link to an internet page. Additionally, being compliant with AB 2140 makes the city eligible for additional state cost share on some public assistance projects. This means that in the event of a major disaster, the state could cover more of the recovery cost. So in summary, in order to close out the hazard mitigation grant and to be eligible for this additional funding in the event of a disaster, the city must complete this general plan amendment. The process to complete this general plan amendment is straightforward. Although the city's coastal land use plan and general plan are combined as one document, the safety element is only part of the general plan, not the coastal land use plan. Therefore, it can be amended by resolution of the City Council with Planning Commission recommendation and doesn't require the longer process of a local coastal program amendment and a coastal commission hearing. Because the most recent attempt to incorporate the LHMP into the safety element was not successful, this time around, we reached out to Cal-OES with draft language to confirm that it would be compliant with AB 2140. They confirmed that it was and encouraged us to move forward with it at Planning Commission. Staff also want to note that this amendment is not associated with the ongoing project to update the GP-CLUP. However, we will make sure that the updated safety element retains language that makes it AB 2140 compliant. The actual proposed amendments to the safety element are minor. Staff followed guidelines from Cal-OES using the provided sample language to add to the safety element. The guidelines specify that the LHMP can be made accessible in its entirety by providing an internet link to the safety element, provided that the link remains current. 2 changes to the safety element are proposed. Both state that the LHMP is incorporated as part of the safety element and provide the direct link to the current LHMP document. The complete changes are shown in track changes in both the staff report and attachment A, which is the resolution. This general plan amendment is exempt from environmental review under CEQA pursuant to the common sense exemption, where it can be seen that the project has no potential to cause a significant impact on the environment. This proposed amendment does not propose any changes to the physical environment and simply incorporates a document into the safety element. And so that brings us to your commission's action options for the evening. Staff's recommendation is to recommend that the City Council adopt the proposed resolution, which is attachment A to your staff report, which would amend the safety element of the general plan, and also to accept the proposed CEQA notice of exemption. You could also decline to provide specific recommendations to the City Council, and staff would move forward. Or you could recommend revisions to the proposed safety element language and or notice of exemption and request that this item be brought back at a future hearing. And I have a sample motion here for action option 1. That concludes my presentation. Let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate the staff report. Okay, questions for staff?
I guess I'll make this as a question as opposed to a comment later, which is simply, I hope it didn't take a whole lot of staff time to move from incorporating by reference to complying with the requirement that it be incorporated differently.
Commissioner
Jumping
Allen,
through
it
some
was
hoops for not much.
it was some copy and paste from the Cal OES guidelines. So yes, it was pretty simple.
Other questions?
I have a number of comments. I mean, this voluminous document that you sent us, 175 pages. And if this is supposed to be user-friendly to the public, I've mentioned this before, having a cheat sheet with the acronyms. This document, what you gave us actually does have such a thing, but it's at the very end. So how would a user know that? I mean, it's not standardly at the end, I don't believe. So I actually started making my own cheat sheet because I couldn't keep track of all of these acronyms, and then I discovered you had one. And believe me, it's very handy once I had it in my hand. And then my second comment is that it seems like a lot of the information in here is quite outdated. I mean, it refers to statistics from things from 2019 and 2021 and 2022. And economic, you have a lot of description in here, economic information. I can't even find the page now, there's so much in here. But it just, whoever is looking, if this is something that you want people to look at, it should have updated information in it, should it not? And some of the things that, like the economic outlook for the city, every January, somebody gives a presentation, I believe, economic report for the city. And you also have a pie diagram in here on page 28. And that one, which I thought was very interesting, and it talks about the sources of the funds, but I'm very curious about how it's allocated. I think it would be very helpful to have a pie chart showing like where the money is all going.
Could I just interrupt for one moment and
Sure.
just ask for clarification from staff? So
Yeah, so I find it just kind of a little, I'm very interested in it, but I find it kind of confusing, and I think it could be updated, and especially, and if you want it to make it accessible to the public.
just for clarification,
I mean, I don't want to go through every single thing I
just
noted
to
in here.
facilitate the discussion, just clarity on whether we're actually entertaining changes to the LHMP tonight through this action, or are we simply talking about the safety element incorporation, right? So I think that's an important question. Before we get too deep into the specifics about the LHMP, which is, my understanding, has already been adopted.
Thank you, Chair. That's correct. So the local hazard mitigation plan, which is that 175, 185-page document that you're referring to, was previously approved and adopted by the City Council back in early '23, I think. So it is updated every 5 years. So at the time that it was created, the information that was in there was the most current available. It'll get updated again in 3-4 years from now. for the next cycle. All that your commission is being asked to do tonight is to amend the policy language and the safety element of the general plan to incorporate or include this document in its entirety so that we can satisfy the legal requirements of the state planning laws and qualify for closeout and reimbursement of the grant that we received to update the local hazard mitigation plan. So basically, we create, kind of this living link in the safety element of the general plan that always refers back to the most current version of this local hazard mitigation plan. And that plan, as I said, will get updated on a 5-year cycle ongoing into the future.
I don't understand.
I hear what you're saying. So perhaps we were not asked to look at it very carefully because it had already been approved. But it does seem like there's a lot of outdated stuff. And if you just want our approval to get the city eligible to get the funding that you want to get, I mean, that seems to the question that we were being asked.
That's correct. The question that the commission has been asked is whether or not to update the general plan to refer to this document. The considerations or deliberations on the content of the document, that was a discussion that was held before the city council. They had the authority to adopt and approve that document, and that was done back in early last year, 2023.
Well, okay. I'll be interested to see 5 years from 2023, or you said 3 or 4, the next version.
Well, it's on a 5-year cycle, so assuming that the consultant team or staff needs, a year or year and change to prepare, gather up the information, update the document, that work I would think would get underway 3 to 4 years from now, so that we'd be ready when that 5-year cycle is up for the next round to be reviewed and approved by the council.
I would urge you, however, to put the acronym at the beginning of this document.
We could take it under advisement. I do note that the location of the acronyms is listed in the table of contents at the front of the document. Section 9.0, page 202.
Okay, so let's move
I have a question.
on to additional questions.
Yes, may I ask some more questions?
You may.
There's a lot of information in here. It's very helpful, but I don't think it belongs in the safety element. I've looked at other cities, and basically it's very simple. They have a description of what the disaster or whatever is, and then policies. But this goes into the history of like mudslides and all that. Very interesting information, but I don't think it hits the nail on the head. And I do get the point now that we are approving this so that you can use the money and close it out, right? But I don't think we should have a document floating out there that isn't that great. Now, and then one other thing, you took other things to put in here. This is the old safety element. I mean, February 23rd safety element.
So the February 23rd dated document is the most current local hazard mitigation plan.
Okay, well, it's interesting reading, only. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Other questions of staff? Nope. Okay. Sorry about that. No other questions, so we'll open the public hearing. Ask if there's anybody in the audience who's here to speak on this item. Please step up. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Rita Sam. I had the same comments as Commissioner Salant had. It seems that the document is 2.5 years old. The local planning team activity ended in March of '22, and the adopted budget on page 28 is from 21 to 22. We have an approved budget for 24-25. It seems ridiculous to submit a document to the state that is outdated, doesn't have valid information in it, when you could change that and send the changes to the city council, and obviously they'd approve it because we need the money to get from the grant. So, I mean, it seems that if you're going to do something, you do it right and you do it currently. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Anybody else in the audience like to address us on this item? Okay, I don't see anybody. Anybody on Zoom?
Thank you, Chair. Nobody on Zoom.
Very good. Thank you. I'll close the public comment period, bring the item back to the commission for discussion or a motion. And I guess I'll just start by saying again, this is a recommendation to the council. Is the action that it's being considered tonight. Commissioner Allen?
Well, I think first, by way of comment, there may be a lot of validity to subject matter of the safety element in the proposed and the hazard plan, but all that's agendized and all that's before us tonight, and therefore all we can do appropriately is take action on the proposed incorporation, which is largely a matter of semantics required by the state agencies. And so I am prepared to move that forward so the city gets the funding. And in the meantime, there have been comments made that I'm sure staff and council will hear and consider. So I move that we adopt the staff's recommendation that we recommend moving this to council for adoption.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
I'd like to add that I think that the report was very educational.
Yeah.
I learned really a lot by reading it. You know that Santa Barbara holds the third hottest day record ever recorded, and what's the first up until 75, I think. I'd heard this story before, but this validated it, and I think all the other I think this document would be a wonderful thing for every citizen of Carp to read and be prepared, because like I might not sleep so good tonight, but at least I'll have it in mind. If a disaster happens, what to do. The other night when they had that earthquake alert, and I ran through it, if there's an earthquake and stuff breaks and there's glass everywhere, so the first thing that you need to think is, I need to get my feet covered. Mm-hmm. I need to get the shoes on. Forget the pants. Anyway, I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there additional discussion?
Well, just by way of amplifying on the historical thing, there's an interesting book. Everybody might take a look at it sometime, or article by Santa Barbara historian Walter Tompkins, I believe it is, some years ago, called, I believe it's something along the lines of When the Birds Fell from the Sky. Temperatures in the 130s or thereabouts. So anyway.
Interesting. Okay, was there additional discussion on the
Yes,
motion?
I want to ask a question, but glasses are the first thing you put on in an earthquake, because I can't see any. Okay. What you said, David, we are only requested to incorporate this safety plan so they can get the money. But it doesn't really say that. It says to amend the safety element of the general plan. Does that open it up for any amendment, or is it just this one specific thing? I just in the future, I want to know why I read every single page.
So let me suggest, if I may, and you know me.
Yes.
We have a motion on the floor. I'm going to call for a voice vote on the motion. The motion is to recommend approval to the City Council to adopt this. And and then if we have additional questions after that, happy to hear them. Is that acceptable?
Well, no, but I'm going to vote for it, but I don't think it answers my question. You can answer it later. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. I'll call for a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so the motion carries 5-0, and the recommendation to the council on this item is approved or sent. And I know I am always at risk of thwarting discussion here, and that's not my intent, so I'm happy to continue this discussion on the safety element. If you had general questions about the safety element itself.
No, just the format.
Okay. All right.
I'll add something. I think it's a good example of just how long it takes to get anything approved.
Yeah.
That's basically what it started in 2017, some of the information and stuff. But it wasn't approved until 2023. I mean, that's the length of the process that it takes. I mean, I don't think people understand that. I don't think the public does. It takes forever. It's a lot of work. And, being a little part of the industry, I understand that. We have projects that are on our books for 10 or more years. And it's a lengthy, painful, labor-intensive, expensive thing that we're doing here. And I don't think very many people understand.
All the more reason to be conscious of our staff's precious time to carry out all of the actions that the council and us and the agencies require. And in this case, coming back and doing it again a different way to cover the details. So it's interesting. I'm glad it's a fairly expeditious resolution. Okay. We're done with that item. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to other business. You're next after this. Is there other business?
I have nothing for you under other business.
Okay. We're going to move to matters presented by commissioners then, and I know Commissioner Salant has an item for discussion.
Yes, this is with regard to the next Planning Commission meeting, which I believe is the day before Election Day. And you suggested at one of our meetings that the Surfliner Inn may come up for consideration at the November Planning Commission. And I have perhaps an extraordinary request, but these are extraordinary times. That is the day before election. This election is all over the country, is very contentious. We hope it will be peaceful. We're not sure. I just think that the general public is going to be very distracted, and this particular issue was so contentious that many citizens came together, they did the petition, and it was on the election. I mean, it was a thing,
Ballot.
it was on the ballot, and it
Commissioner
narrowly
Salant,
failed.
I think I
And
could
so-
put you at ease. It's not, the Surfliner project is not ready for Planning Commission. It will not be coming in November.
Okay, so is there anything that is of great importance that the public might want to come and will be people are just not going to be, of course we will, but the general public might just be distracted.
So we tentatively have parked on the November hearing, bringing the Monte Vista Dog Park pilot project back to you for the 6-month check-in.
Okay, I remember that well.
Great audience.
And then we tentatively also hope to bring to your commission the proposed rezones, the first wave of the rezones needed to implement our housing element.
Boy.
And so that is a bigger item, but we're running up on a deadline, and so we're trying to just keep that project moving.
Okay,
And right now, I think those are the only 2 items on the November agenda.
is the rezoning something that a lot of people in town are going to want to weigh in on?
It could be, it's something that potentially could have a significant impact on parts of the community. So it could be of interest to folks, but again, it's something that we absolutely need to keep moving on. We can't really afford to sit on our hands here for another month. We're trying to get as close to having that buttoned up by the end of the year before some additional laws take effect that might further expose us to kind of more draconian housing laws that the state has adopted.
Got it.
Also called abuse.
All right. I'll be here.
I have a request. May I?
Please.
I dropped this packet and papers went flying. And I'm just wondering if we could get them in a notebook or consolidated or something when we get things. I know it's a lot of work because I used to do it myself, but it's hard to get organized when there's so many papers and they're flying around, especially since I drop things. But could you please consider the format here?
Or when they're really massive, like this 176-page one, which
Through
I
the
got
chair,
the
yes,
pages
I think,
everywhere,
I think
too.
we can do that if that's the preference of some or all of the commission. I think we used to provide you with binders years ago, and then, right, with the intention that after the meeting, the commissioners would give them back to us so we could reuse them and give them back out to you. And then somewhere along the way, we tried to transition to tablets, and that's been, hit or miss for different decision makers. It sounds like now there's a preference back to paper as being more user-friendly. And so, if that's the preference of the commission, I can pass that along, and we can work towards getting it put back into binders for you. Or if that's a preference of some of you, and some of you have different preferences, I guess just send Lorena and I an email so we know, and we'll do our best to accommodate you.
when it's about this thick and it's stapled, I personally, that's fine with me. But when it comes with a big clip on the top and it's all loose, then it's
Okay.
for me personally, it was difficult.
Understood.
Through the chair. I have a question along those lines. It would be more efficient for staff for us to make a particular request for particular meetings. For example, if you have 100 and some pages safety element, I might want that in paper. Whereas the rest of the meeting, like tonight, I don't need it seeing it online is fine. But what I'm asking, is it easier for staff for us to say, I want it in paper, or to say, I want this part in paper?
My gut tells me that, it's easiest and most efficient if we either just give you a complete paper packet or we just give it to you electronically. So if you have a preference for one over the other, right, it's easy to just hit, give me 5 copies of this, and it spits out 5 copies rather than trying to second guess, okay, we want these electronic, we want these paper, for Commissioner Allen, we want something different for Commissioner Slant.
I had a suspicion that might be it, but I wanted to ask.
Okay, other items by commissioners? Nope, okay. Director's report?
Thank you, Chair. So in your director's report, you've got the ARB meeting minutes from August 15th, city calendar for the month of October, and the planning activity reports and building permit reports for the month of September. And the only thing I'd add here is just a question for the commission as to whether there's any value in including the city calendar in your packet. So the calendars that used to be created that kind of had all the different meetings going on the for the month have been discontinued. So now we're literally just grabbing a screenshot of like the kind of the council meeting room planning calendar for the month and giving that to you. I don't know if it's as much value to you or not. If you still find value in it, we're happy to keep doing screenshots of it, including it, but it's changed from what it used to be, and I don't know that it's as of much value as it used to be.
Well, you don't have the birthdays on there. It's valuable to me because I have
Okay.
other meetings here.
Okay, that's great. If it still has
It
value,
is
we're
helpful
happy
to me, too.
We're happy to keep producing it. I just wanted to check since it's not what it used to be.
And my only comment is that some of the committee meetings don't always show up, and it's useful to have those. We have COSMAB and
Right.
HSAC and
Yeah.
so on, and sometimes, not recently, I don't think, but they've disappeared. Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll continue to provide it then for you.
Okay, I think last item before adjournment is our next meeting, which we've discussed a little bit already, November 4th, so we kind of know what's going to be on that meeting. Sounds like an important meeting for planning commissioners to participate in. Anybody not going to be here?
Okay. Can I wear a politically unacceptable shirt?
Nick, you spoke of some meeting on October 17th
Correct, that's the next meeting of the Architecture Review Board.
that you suggested we would be interested in. I will be
Oh,
out
it
of
was just-
town.
It was an announcement for the public, really, just that at that next meeting, the board will be considering the objective design standards for,
I would be very interested, but I won't be here.
you're welcome to watch it on Zoom if you like.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be with my family in New York City.
You're welcome to watch it when you get home on the recording on Granicus.
That's true. Okay, got it.
Got it.
Okay, it looks like all commissioners are expecting to be available on November 4th here in person.
In person.
Okay, cool. All right, with that, that completes our agenda. Thank you all for joining us tonight, much appreciated.
Thank you,
And,
Glenn.
thank you to staff, and with that, we're adjourned.